Hi, everybody. Welcome to Just the Two of Us. My name is Colleen, and happy Labor Day weekend. And it's going to be a Labor Day weekend. I have so many things to do, and I'm starting off with a new recipe for me. I've never done this before, and it comes from the book Freeze Fresh, which I've used this book many times so I can properly freeze my food. Anything that I get from the garden or whatever, if I'm not canning it or dehydrating it, I want to know that I'm freezing it in the best way I can. But I'm doing a recipe. It's called Veggie Loaded Marinara Sauce, but I'm going to pressure can it because I have no room in my freezers right now at all. So I actually got inspired to do this because Becky at the seasonal Homestead, I watched a video she did last week and she made this as well, but she's doing it by putting it in the freezer, and it uses zucchini, peppers, onions, carrots, green beans, everything that I have in plenty right now from my garden. And I thought I have a surplus of tomatoes, so I'm going to make this, but I don't have room to freeze it. So I'm going to find in the Ball canning book something similar and can it for that amount of time. And in this book as well, it says to cook down your tomatoes like on the stove or in your roaster. But just for added flavor, I'm going to roast them in my oven. I've done that before with pizza sauce or with tomato sauce. If I have time, which I kind of do today, but not really, I like to roast my tomatoes in the oven. It does give a different flavor. It gives a more intense, beautiful tomato flavor. So that's what I'm going to do today, and I'm doubling the recipe. So I'm going to have to do these trays probably two, for sure two, maybe three times. So I have my oven set at 375. I'm thinking maybe 20, 25 minutes they'll be ready. I'll keep checking on them, and I will still have to pass them through my tomato press. The skins, when you roast them in the oven, they peel right off, which isn't the problem, but I don't want the seeds in my sauce either, so I'm still going to pass them through my food mill. And then you're going to put it in your roaster or a big pot and cook it down. But I'm not going to do that either. I'm going to do my trick of passing it through the fine mesh sieve strainer, and I'm going to get it to the thick consistency right away. And then I'm going to add all the yummy vegetables, and then I'm going to pressure can it. And it sounds like a delicious thing that I'll have on my pantry shelf all winter long. So it's from this book, and it's an amazing book. If you're not a canner in particular and you still like to put up food, it goes through the alphabet A to Z of every food you can imagine. And with each food group, it does give you a couple of recipes that are really, really good. It has a really good pizza sauce that you can freeze and stuff like that. So I really recommend this book. I've had it for a while and I've only tried a few like recipes, but I use it as a wonderful resource for freezing food. So I'm going to get these in the oven, take them out, pass a few more through the oven, and then I'm going to put them through my tomato press, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, well, the first round of tomatoes are still in the oven. They're almost ready. So I thought I'd get some of the vegetables prepared. So I think I'm going to roast some of them to even add a nice deeper flavor. So it calls for 1 bell pepper, but I'm doubling it. So I'm going to roast 2 red Advarsky peppers. You can add any bell pepper, could be green, whatever, but those are specifically made for roasting. So when the tomatoes are done, or if I have room on one of the trays, I'll do that. And I'm going to roast the garlic. And it says 1 large onion. So I'm going to use 2 onions, and I'm going to roast that too. And everything's from my garden except of the onions, because all our onions turned out tiny, like literally golf ball size. And I don't feel like dealing with the peeling all that. So everything else is from the garden. So it said 1 large carrot, and I took 3 medium size, and I just diced them up like fine. Frank just pulled these the other day. I had one little bed that was still left. And it says 2 cups of green beans, which means I would need 4. And I do have 4, but actually I froze these last year from this book, from Freeze Fresh. These are the Canterre green beans. But I don't know. To me, green beans in a marinara sauce. So I'm going to cut them up and just maybe do the 2 cups and not double it and add more carrot, because I don't know, to me green beans, how does it say to cut them? It just says chopped 2 cups, so I'm going to kind of put them like in smaller pieces. So I guess just like that. So all I'm going to do for now, because they're just way too hot to handle, I'm not even going to worry about pulling the skins off because they're going to go through the tomato press. Just going to stick them all in this pot because I'm going to put the next round in. And then, oh, it smells so good. And if I have room, I'll put on the peppers and onions, but I don't think I will. They'll go in another sheet. And I'm almost finished chopping up the vegetables, which I'll show you everything what I did. And then we can put it all together. So I'll get these guys loaded up. And it's going to be very colorful. We've got the carrots, the zucchini, the beans, the tomatoes. It's going to be a very pretty sauce. There, that's the last batch of tomatoes. And see that charring? That's what I want. That's what gives it the good flavor. But full disclosure, I turned on the broiler. It was taking way too long roasting them. So I didn't put my oven rack right close to the broiler. I had it like halfway in the oven, and then I turned on the broiler. So now I'm going to put my garlic, my 2 red roasting peppers, and my onion. Sorry, but I'm going to keep close eye because the garlic's going to roast really fast. So I'm going to put them in, and then we're all done with all of the vegetables, and we can get it all together in a pot. After we put the tomatoes through the tomato press, but we have to let them cool down for a bit. Okay, all my prep work is done. Sometimes it's worth it to go through the little bit of extra effort. I think it's going to turn out really, really good. So I have all my roasted tomatoes here, and they're really, really hot. So I'm going to let that cool down before it goes through the tomato press. When you roast peppers, the easiest thing to do is right when they come out of the oven, you put them in a pot or something with a lid, and it steams them. And as soon as they cool down a bit, you can peel the skins right off. So the peppers are in there. I have my onions here. Maybe they could have been roasted a little bit longer, but some of them were starting to char, so I took them all out. The garlic is beautifully roasted. And here I have all my vegetables. So I'm going to read you the vegetables because it may have got confusing before when I was jumping back and forth from what I was doing by doubling it. So it's 10 pounds of tomatoes or 20 cups, 1 large onion, 1 bell pepper, 2 cups of zucchini, 2 cups of green beans, 1 large carrot, 5 cloves of garlic, 2 teaspoons of salt, which I haven't used yet, a 1/4 cup of basil, and a 1/4 cup of parsley, but we haven't gotten there yet. And what I did with the zucchini, I had like a regular green one, but I also had a bit of a yellow squash left. So I thought the colors would be nice too. So I've got the orange carrot, the green from the beans, the green zucchini, the yellow. So I thought that would be really nice. So I have to let some of this cool down a bit, and then this will go through the tomato press, and then it all goes into a pot together, and you let it cool, simmer a bit, and then I'm going to can it. Anybody else would freeze it. So I'm excited to give this a taste test when it's all put together. So I'm going to give it maybe a half hour or so, and maybe stick it near the air conditioner and speed things up, but we'll be back real soon. The tomatoes weren't the only thing that needed to cool down. It is so hot. The house is air conditioned, but it's 40 degrees outside Celsius, which I looked it up is 104 Fahrenheit. That's with the Humidex. And the house is air conditioned, but between having the oven on and now I'm going to get the pressure can ready, it's just so hot. So everything's ready now. So I have all the vegetables prepped, and the tomatoes went through the tomato press. Now, I don't know, I guess by roasting them, it took out so much of the water. I don't have to do my trick. And if anything, I reserved some of the water that was on the trays from roasting. I may even add some back, but I know the zucchinis and stuff are gonna add more fluid to it. So I'm gonna warm it back up on the stove. Now, if you were going to freeze this, it says to cook it for about an hour on the stove so the vegetables soften. But since I'm gonna pressure can it, my vegetables are gonna cook in the canning process. So all I'm gonna do is warm everything up. So when it goes into the canner, it's warm. I'll have my canner warm, my jars warm. Everything will be the same temperature. But if you were going to freeze this, you would want all your vegetables cooked. So the book says that you would put this back on the stove after running it through your press, and you would cook on a simmer for at least an hour till your vegetables are tender, like your carrots or whatever. So I'm going to add back, I haven't added yet, all my vegetables. And it's quite a bit. I don't know. I think there's not enough sauce, honestly, for all these vegetables. And I know they'll cook down. And I know they're going to release more, like I said, the zucchini and that will release some juice, but that's a pretty thick sauce. I mean, it looks absolutely beautiful. Like, look at the colors, and talk about healthy. Well, I guess that's okay. I think it'll be okay. If anything, I would prefer it thicker, but it's going to cook a bit, thicken in the canning process too. So we'll get it on the stove. When it warms up, it's going to get thinner again too. It's because it's cooled down. So let's get it warmed up on the stove, and I'm going to set up all my jars and everything for canning. But it looks just beautiful. You see that? I think this is a wonderful thing to have on the pantry shelf. All right, let's make the house hot again and turn the stove back on. I think I've just messed up this whole video. Sometimes when I do a new recipe, and I'm trying to concentrate doing this as well, I have like fibro fog and I just can't process information well. So I'm kind of nervous doing a new recipe, sharing it with you guys, and I'm kind of behind a step. I didn't prepare the basil and parsley, but I'm only going to put that in towards the end of warming it up. And I picked all this earlier and I just kept it in the fridge to keep it fresher. So I'm going to do 1/4 cup, but I'm doing half. And the same with the basil. So I'm doing 1/2 cup of each. But it would, if you're doing the single recipe, it would only be 1/4. And it says 2 teaspoons of salt, and I'm going to do 4. And because I'm canning it, I'm going to make sure I'm using not table salt or iodized salt. Smells so good. I love fresh herbs. I already put all my knives and everything in the dishwasher thinking I was done chopping, so I had to pull out the backup. So I'll get all this chopped up, and I'm only going to put it in once my sauce is all warm. Stick it in at the very end. Hey, it's quite warm now, so I'm just going to add in my herbs. So that's the parsley and basil. And boy, does it smell good. There's nothing like fresh herbs. I added my salt, and I think I'm going to add just a touch of the juice, because it'll thicken even more because I'm canning it. If you're freezing it, it's all a personal preference too. It depends how you like your sauce. So I'm just going to let those herbs cook a little bit into the sauce, get the flavors going, and then I'm going to can it. But I think that looks so beautiful. And I'll give it a taste test and see if I have to adjust anything to my taste. And it's all done. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I already know I'm going to can it again. It tastes fantastic. And I only warmed it up. I didn't let it go through its full cooking process because I'm going to can it. So the flavors haven't even come to their fullness yet, and it already tastes fantastic. So I can hardly wait to eat it. I forgot my funnel. Hold on. Because you know I always forget something. Sorry. So because I'm pressure canning it, I looked in the ball book and I tried to find something similar to this, and I'd rather go longer than shorter. And what I did was, I'm not even going really in the tomato route because of all the vegetables. So I'm going by the vegetable soup recipe because it has the carrots and everything in it and tomatoes. And it's 55 minutes for pints and 85 minutes for quarts. So I'm going to process this for 85 minutes. But if you were freezing it, you don't have to worry about that. And that's what I think is so awesome about this recipe is if I had the freezer space in a heartbeat, I would be freezing this. But I literally don't. Our freezers are jam-packed because of all the broccoli and cauliflower that we grew. That takes up so much room. We have the cow that we had processed. I buy all my chicken in bulk, and I have 2 stand-up freezers and another fridge with the freezer downstairs. Everything is at its max. So I want to can this only for the sake of I don't have room. Otherwise, this sounds amazing to freeze it. And if you are freezing it, you'd have to leave a good inch or more headspace, even that, because it'll expand. I'm going to leave a generous inch headspace as well for canning purposes. But oh my gosh, it tastes so good. So you would had to leave it on the stove for, it says, like a good hour till the vegetables cooked all the way through. But mine are going to cook in the pressure canner. So I'll fill all my jars up. I'm not going to show you all the pressure canning steps. That wasn't really the point. I just wanted to share this recipe to see how it would turn out, because I figured if it turned out well for anybody who doesn't can or has all these ingredients right now in abundance, what a wonderful way to use them up and to have it handy tucked away somewhere. So I'll finish all this, and then when the whole process of the canning and that is done, I'm thinking I'll get at least 5-6 quarts out of it, and that's with doubling it. So I'll show you when everything's done. And look at that. Does that not look beautiful, other than the little bit of mess I need? Looks beautiful. Hands down, the absolute best new recipe and or canning project I have done in a really long time. This is so delicious. You have to try it. I really mean it. You have to try it. It is so good. And talk about healthy. I'm already going to be making another batch within the next few days. I still have lots of tomatoes. I still have lots of the other vegetables that go into it. And it went through the canning process really well. It's meant for the freezer, so if you can do that, freeze it. But it went through the canning process really well. I had a little bit of shrinkage because my vegetables cooked in the jars, which I expected, so that's fine. All my jars popped, which is great. But when I make it again, I'm going to have to can it again because I just don't have the freezer space. But it's a wonderful option to know that you can do both, but the intent is to freeze it. So I think it's a wonderful recipe, and I'm really happy to have it on my pantry, or if I could, in my freezer. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it. And until we're together again, take care.